We just want to say we are so excited for this week's episode. We are doing a recap, our top takeaways from a yearly conference. Stephen has been going to this conference for the last 6 years, I think. Five. I've been going for the last 4. This is a huge internet marketing conference. They've had speakers like Jenna Kutcher, Ed Milet, Brandon Bouchard, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, like the top of the top speakers have come. And here are takeaways from this past year's Funnel Hacking Live. That's what the conference is called. Our top takeaways from the conference.
So in standard fashion, we got our notes here from the conference. This is really me and Chelsey processing this and recapping almost to each other. We've had a couple conversations, but we also want to drop some bombs for you guys that have just been big for us. Now, the thing is, the more we've been at these conferences, I've actually realized something. I went in 2018, we were pretty brand new in this internet marketing thing. And I was like in the room every single second, and when I wasn't in the room, I was actually working and building on things. Because in those early days of your business, you just are hustling, you're doing everything. And so I was in the hallway, stand up late, actually implementing what I actually learned that day. And I remember that very vividly. And as we've gone on in the years of going to this, it's kind of fun when you go to a conference over and over and over again, because you see the same people. I have found the value for us now is not so much in the room. The conference is a long conference. And the value for us now, the highest value we get is often the connections, the relationships, the dinners, the breakfasts that happen outside of the conference. Now, there still is incredible value in the room, but we found as we've grown and matured and built this business, the most valuable takeaways sometimes don't happen from a conference speaker.
Yeah. And like Stephen mentioned, this conference has been very pivotal for our business. Like Stephen said, he went to the first conference alone when we started getting into really understanding our messaging in Rainmakers. At the time, I was still at home running primarily our wedding business, keeping those customers and clients happy while we were trying to build Rainmakers. We had stumbled upon Amazon, and it was incredible. It was a breakthrough that we had been waiting for, and we knew we needed to share with more people. We wanted others to experience what we had experienced. And so Stephen was staying up late. He was investing more time and energy into growing Rainmakers. And so he stumbled upon this conference. And honestly, I didn't really understand a lot of it. I would hear bits and pieces of what the founder, Russell Brunson, would share. And I was like, okay, cool. But it wasn't until I went the year later that I think I remember turning to you and being like, I get it. I caught the fire and I got it. And I saw how this type of marketing, how these types of speakers could be applied, the information could be applied to any business. And honestly, I feel like it gave me an up level in my own personal journey. Not only that, but this conference, I remember one pivotal conversation that we had with one of our mentors, Pedro, in the hallway. And that was where he challenged us to niche down to stay-at-home homeschool moms. Now, we don't primarily serve stay-at-home homeschool moms anymore. We've kind of zoomed out. But at the time, that's who we really, really niched down and got our messaging. And through that conversation, Rainmakers really took off. And so this conference has been every single year, some kind of stretching, some kind of thing. And I can trace it back to this. So it's very it's just very emotionally and inspiring. We won different awards at this conference. So, it's fun to go every year and see people. And this year we got to bring several of our team members, which was really important to us, that we got face to face with certain team members. That way they could pull from the room, meet new people, meet people that are really important to us in business. And it was fun having them along and having them experience Funnel Hacking Live for the first time. Now, if you've never been to a conference before, I just want to encourage you. Something that Stephen and I do every single time is we go into a conference or a network meeting, or even just showing up to any event, really. And we always look at it from a posture of how can we give? How can we be givers? How can we inspire others? How can we our knowledge and expertise might be the key that somebody else is looking for. And so we really come in open-handed, how can we serve? How can we continue to give more value? Because when you focus on that, you'll be surprised that I feel like there's this energy and like frequency that happens when you are just giving and in a posture to give. And it's through that giving that you actually receive. And so if you're heading into your first conference, first event, even if you're showing up to like a mom's networking group for a play date, like how can you be a giver? How can you encourage? Because the experiences that you have could be that key that somebody else needs.
Yeah, it was through this really that giving mindset, connecting with people. There were these things happen in the hallways. I was like, oh, I met this person, connect with that person. So I have a whole list of people I need to follow up with over the next couple of weeks that you'll probably hear on this podcast over the next couple of months. So if you're a faithful listener to the show, you're going to get the overflow benefit from getting some of the wisdom of the people we connected with. Even just random things where like we were in line to get one of these awards at this conference, celebrating a milestone in our business. And the person right behind us in line was like, oh my gosh, we do this thing for women in e-commerce. It was like, wow, there's like this crazy alignment here where like we serve a certain person, a certain part in their journey, and they serve a person just a couple steps down that journey. Like there could be an awesome collaboration there. So we'll have them on the podcast. We'll talk some more. You never know what these relationships are going to turn into. And why try to do it all when you can do it together and serve people at a higher level together? And so there's been like, that's my big takeaway is like all these relationships that we built that potentially are going to open up new revenue streams, open up new opportunities, open up new connections or ways we can serve our community or our audience at a higher level. And so that's my biggest takeaway is the relationships. And you guys will definitely see those over the next couple of months.
Yeah. On a tactical side of things, for me personally, there is a lot of speakers who touched upon the power of like short form content or videos or reels or consistency on social media. And while our business model at Amazon, what we teach, you do not have to have a social media presence by any means. Amazon already has the customers. They already have the leverage. You don't have to go out and become an influencer or learn Facebook ads, which is absolutely amazing. But we do have some students who do like to create a brand around their product. And where Steven and I are at in our business is it's really important that we are showing up consistently on social media. We do that over on the Rainmaker family, and that Instagram has totally blown up. But we decided to really focus our energy and efforts in the last 6 months to a year on our personal brand. So that is at Steez Diaz at Instagram, and that's at Chelsey Diaz. Those are our personal brands. And we do things like a little bit differently over there than we do on the Rainmaker side of things, but it always brings people back to Rainmakers, and it just allows us to grow and reach more people.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I was getting confirmation after confirmation that the energy and efforts that we've been putting into our personal brands are really, really important. And there is just speaker after speaker talking about influencer marketing, talking about content, talking about consistency. I think that's one of the things that I was really encouraged by is that, there really is no such thing as overnight success. And the people with millions of followers on social media, hundreds of thousands of followers, those people didn't start out with where they're at. It took time. It took consistency. It took showing up live. It took posting when you didn't feel like it. It took dedication to set time aside in your calendar to think about your audience and the type of content and relationships that you want to build. It's that consistency piece. And in our wedding business and even in our Rainmaker business, like those were always my superpowers. I was always the one like blogging and posting on social media. And through that, we gained a following. And it's kind of the same thing that has happened in Rainmakers. And I feel like in a lot of ways, like I am newer to starting like my personal brand and putting more energy and effort into that. And at times it has felt very vulnerable, and I sometimes don't want to hit live. And it took a while for me to start building that muscle, but I know that the consistency is going to pay off. And hearing these speakers talk was very confirming for me. So regardless of if you are trying to build an audience or you're like it doesn't matter. Like, I just want to encourage you that consistency is really powerful. And it's not the sexy thing that like shoots you from like $100 a day to $1 million a day in your bank account, but the consistency over time adds up. And it's just, we say this all the time with our students, you have to be consistent. You can't throw in the towel. You have to keep following the proven process, which we have in Rainmakers. And for me, it's like, I need to continue to follow the proven process of being posting on social media. And I know that it will continue to grow. And I've already seen that in the last 6 months, but it was just like this extra momentum and fire to the fuel, or fuel to the fire, however you want to say it, to just keep me going that direction.
I don't know your favorite speaker, Chelsey. Maybe think about it. Mine was probably Dr. Benjamin Hardy. It was pretty heady. Like at the beginning, it was a very like, oh my gosh.
I was like, where are you going,
It was like
bud?
super deep, and it was like, I almost like wanted to like, like sometimes you want to speed up a speaker, like you like want to 2x him. I almost wanted to like 0.5 him so I could like just really chew on what he was saying because it was so deep. But then he did take us through an exercise, and we've mentioned his books a lot. He does these partnership books with Dan Sullivan, Gap in the Gain, Who Not How, Be Your Future Self Now, and 10x is easier than 2x. And these books have been incredibly impactful on us. So it's just super fun to see him speak in person on the topic of 10xing and how it's easier than 2xing. And so he took us through an exercise, and it was a really cool exercise to kind of like look back on your life. And it really started, like I wrote down the questions here, really started back like, let's see, was it 5 years ago? Let's see. Oh, he said, what was the biggest change / growth in your life since 2013? So he went back basically 10 years. So like, what was the biggest change / growth? And he gave us some time to think it through, right? And he said, what was the biggest change since 2020? Right? So 3 years ago. What was the biggest change since January? That's just, earlier this year. What was the biggest change since September? It was earlier this month. And what was the biggest change since Monday, right?
Wow.
What was the biggest change / growth since Monday? And it just really got us. And then he took 2 minutes. So if you want to try this exercise, just rewind the podcast and pause it in between. Take 2 to 3 minutes and write it down, right? Write it down. And it gave like a lot of like, wow, reflection, but also clarity on like, here's the things that really drive the biggest change in my life, right? From 10 years ago to even just this week. And so he talked about this concept of 10xing, and we've hit this on this podcast a lot, but a lot of times to 10x, you got to get out of the busy work and you got to do these things that are like this massive change. So he challenged us, like, what are 1 to 2 impossible goals that you could set for yourself? Impossible goals that you could set for yourself by the end of the year, right? And this starts you thinking this 10x mindset, because sometimes you're like, you're on this normal growth trajectory, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm just going to grow, but if you kind of like, how could I grow this much? We actually started doing this with our team. We are like, we're currently making this much as an organization, right? We're making this much impact. We're making this much money. We're making this much, whatever, right? What does 10x look like? And those numbers, they make you think different, because like, if you start thinking about that number and work your way backwards, it's like, that's actually impossible for what we have right now to go there. So what does it take to go there? And like, what needs to shift? And so this really reminded me of some goals I had set for this year as like annual goals that honestly, they're so big, they're so impossible, they feel so stretching that I've honestly procrastinated them. I procrastinated them because there's been easier goals to knock out, which have been great, but like they've been 2x goals, not 10x goals, right? And we have 2x our business this year, but we have not 10x our business, right? I've 10x my time, I feel like, but to go 10x, to go to that level, and I'm talking about 10x impact, 10x income, 10x everything, right? 10x time freedom, 10x generational legacy, all the things we stand for, it takes different thinking. And so that exercise really reminded me of that 10x thinking and really gave me some accountability and some fire on some of those goals I've been putting up that I'm going to push across the finish line by the end of the year.
Another speaker was Jocko, who is a retired U.S. Navy SEAL. He's part of SEAL Team 6, and he now trains all about leadership. He's written several books. You can find him all over the place. And he came in and spoke about
extreme
ownership, which I have been thinking about nonstop since we got back from Funnel Hacking Live. And what he meant by this is like, so many people in leadership, and now you might be thinking, well, Chelsey, I don't have a big team like you do. I have a small business. You are a leader. You are a leader in your family. You are a leader in whether you're a solo entrepreneur or not. There are people who do things for you. And it's about taking complete ownership. Is that what you call it?
Extreme ownership.
It's about taking extreme ownership of whatever it is you're doing. And I've fallen short of this so many times. I want to blame somebody else for my problems. I want to blame, I've even like blamed the team when something didn't happen correctly or an email sequence went out or there's miscommunication over here. I blame Steven for who knows what,
Everything.
Everything. We're kind of joking, but it's something I'm working on. And that has resonated with me so much, taking extreme ownership. When something goes wrong, it is on you. If you are the head of your family, if you are the head of your team and there is miscommunication in the organization, that is on you and you need to own that. And so Steven and I we've been talking a lot about like upping the level of extreme ownership for us. And if we do that first and model it, the rest of our team will, even if it wasn't fully our fault. It's like, we're saying like, hey, I'm taking ownership of this. And it has just made me a more powerful person in my decision making, both in business and in life. I think that there's certain times, especially as women, like we want affirmation. We want our decisions to be approved and liked by family and friends. And if they're not, it makes us question making that powerful decision. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone to a girlfriend and you're like, what should I do? What do you think? And it's just like, what if you just came and you were strong and you're like, I am making this decision. Like, I don't need Steven's help. I don't need who's ever help. Like, I can make this decision and be powerful in that decision and be powerful in that decision. And even if the circumstances don't go exactly how I wanted, I can choose to not be a victim of that and blame somebody else and blame that. And I just think there's too many, and I'm saying this because I've done it for years. Like, there's too many people where they just want to be a victim and they just want to blame and they don't want to take ownership. And I loved his approach to this. And it just made me want to like level up in accountability and how accountability for myself and just accountability in our team, because we reflect what we carry. And if I'm always pointing a finger, not taking ownership, not looking at our systems and communication, then everybody else on their team is going to do the same thing, and it's not going to move in the correct direction.
Yeah. This is huge. I've definitely, that's something that I've been resonating with a lot of times, but it's something you can easily forget about. But it's just like, if you're mad about something, like even with your kids or something like that, right? It's like, oh, they did this thing. It's like, it's on you, it's on you as the leader, right? And like, taking ownership again, like there is stuff that can be totally outside your control.
Yeah, of course.
But what can you take ownership of? And say like, I did this. And when you lead that way, it actually opens up for other people to do the same thing. So even if let's just say it's your kid messed up and did something crazy, right? You're like, hey, I wanted to own this because I should have let you know that was not okay. And I should have done this, I should have done that. And typically what this does when you say I, it makes them go, no, I also did this. I also did that. Right. I get it that sometimes teenagers are not going to like, it's not all going to click. Okay. But like this works really well with teen, works really well with kids. This extreme ownership concept, but you have to do it yourself for it to catch with other people. And sometimes it takes some time. Right. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you did that. It's your fault. Right. But as you do this over time, right, it becomes a culture where everyone's taking ownership of their thing. And it's powerful.
Yeah. Like Steven said, there's always going to be circumstances. There are things that are literally like not your fault. We're not saying that like, oh, your flight was delayed. Now that's your fault because you're the pilot. It's like, no, like we get that. But I think that this concept that Jocko teaches on is very counterculture again, because people don't want to take extreme ownership. They want to like blame and become a victim. And you see it in people's life when it's just like, I'm a victim to my circumstance. I'm a victim to this. I'm a victim to where I grew up. And it's just like, what if you were just like, no, like this is where I grew up and I'm proud of it. And this is how I can move on. So I love Jocko and I've been thinking a lot about what he said. And the last and final takeaway that we want to share with you is that the healthy routine and lifestyle that you have at home needs to be carried with you into the conference sessions and everything that you do and the decisions you make there. So I'll just say, Steve and I do travel a lot. We travel with the boys, without them, and taking extra vitamin C supplements before, during, and after your trip. That's another way we stay healthy, hydrated. I would just say, like, if you're in a good routine at home, if you're taking care of your body and your health, like, don't just stop because you're traveling, or especially when you're going to a conference, like, stay moving. Almost all hotels, have like a path you can walk on or a treadmill you can use. And I know there's temptation to be like, I'm missing this speaker, I'm missing this event, but I'm just telling you, your body will thank you later and you'll get all the information and everything that you still need. So that would be my like random tip for you with conferences that I could even improve on myself. And then I'll just leave you with this. Like, Steven and I have seen time and time again the power of investing in ourselves and investing in conferences and travel and time to go someplace that's outside of your comfort zone, sometimes away from our family. And there's just been like, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to invest in yourself and invest in your business. That's why we pay for mentorships. That's why we get in rooms with other people, and the knowledge we have, the expertise, the breakthrough that we've had in our business, the result of what you're seeing, including this podcast, was through a conversation we had with a friend at a conference. And it is powerful. And I know that takes planning to have childcare and people picking and helping you in your home while you're away, but it's always worth it. So if you've never invested in something like this before, I just want to encourage you. This is your sign to go sign up for whatever that conference is that you've been eyeing for a long time. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Hey, if you are not a part of our Rainmaker Mastermind, we have a new opportunity for you to book a one-on-one strategy call with one of our Rainmaker coaches.
If you want to get a call with them, see if it's a good fit for you to work with us to build a business that allows you to have time freedom and financial freedom, you can get that call at makeitrainmama.com/podcast. That's makeitrainmama, MOMMA.com/podcast.